Greetings, dear fireflies, and welcome to the Fifth Dimension channel. How to develop your psychic abilities. When we talk about subtle feelings, hearing, or seeing, it is necessary to distinguish them by the degree of concentration, the brightness of sound, and depth. What does it mean? To do this, let's give a simple example. Imagine that you have extremely high and sensitive hearing. One fine morning you decided to take a walk in the park. You have come to the edge of the forest and enjoy the view. All around is silence and grace. And suddenly, this idyll is broken by the sharp sound of a passing company that is actively discussing something. Your hypersensitive ears begin to experience discomfort, reaching sharp pain in the eardrum. After a while, people start to gather in the park to spend time in nature, just like you. They walk around, pass by, and you can no longer make out exactly where the sound comes from in all this ringing and thundering orchestra. Thus, while your attention is focused on internal processes, you are extremely sensitive to details. But in the case when people with absolutely different vibrational components start entering your space, the breakdown by frequency column can be really impressive. Then you naturally switch more and more attention to the events taking place in the external environment. If up to this point, nature itself filled you and you felt inner peace and tranquility, then now there is a waste of that very inner energy on the processes taking place in the external environment. After all, where your focus is shifted, that's where the energy goes. Thus, everything that is outside of this focus, over time, begins to come to a standstill. Nature does not tolerate emptiness. All areas that are not filled with light are filled with dark. So there comes a stagnation, a pumping out of energy that leads certain human organs to disease, and objects to self-destruction. To avoid undesirable consequences, you are assigned a whole group of souls who work tirelessly on your development and strict adherence to the soul plan. This group includes guardian angels, teachers and mentors, curators of destinies, and yourself, your more conscious and expanded part of the divine self, the higher mind. Help is provided until you gain the awareness and inability to self-destruct that is characteristic of a three-dimensional person. You are a divine particle of the spirit, an infinitely sparkling, inexhaustible source of energy and potential. When the boundaries of consciousness fall away, you will be able to feel how much you have been squeezed into a vice and what opportunities you have. The difficulty is that the more irritating receptors around you, in our case hearing, the more your attention and energy are dissipated. Thus, there is a waste of your internal reserves, which should be directed to the realization of your creative potential. We have talked a lot about the fact that the development of subtlety is directly related to the calming of the mind. Therefore, solitude in meditation, staying in nature and fresh air, establishing an energetic connection with Gaia, through the practice of grounding, are the basic requirements for the passage of the path of ascension. At the very beginning, we talked about different degrees and depths of feelings. That everyone who comes to the earth plane has a unique experience of past incarnations. Many of you have been priests, crystal keepers, healers, white and dark magicians. Therefore, you already carry the necessary encodings for opening the memory. We are not just talking about remembering who you really are, but about the abilities that you had and still have in potential. If we look at the example of healers, it is quite easy to recognize them. They have truly impressive life energy, the ability to heal from a distance. The healer's abilities are limited only by the level of his awareness. But it should be noted that it is extremely important for a healer to maintain an equal energy exchange, and at the very beginning of his life, try not to lead his body to exhaustion. Observe the laws of the universe, especially in the case of painful healing, during which a person will need to gain willpower. We are talking about the fact that there are processes when a person needs help and he must accept and prepare consciously. You need to understand that the stronger the sensitivity of the person who turns to the healer, the stronger the result will be felt. Also, the degree of illness, distortions in the physical body, the period of healing, determine how obvious the result will be. The higher the vibrations of the healer, the faster he can perform the healing itself, regardless of the severity of the disease. We know of a case in history where the ascended master Sananda could heal from a distance with a thought, a word and a touch. A healer can certainly be attributed to a feeling person, but with an analytical mindset and a high degree of responsibility,
because in his hands is the fate, quality and duration of life of another person.
But at the same time, he must understand that as long as a person does not realize his own mistakes, the disease will return or worsen. When we talk about allowing the soul to make adjustments to its structure and bring the body into balance, we mean the ability and most importantly the willingness of the soul to change the way of thinking life. If we are talking about priests, then in this case, it is vital to maintain your energy structure and physical body in almost sterile purity.
After all, he needs to be a spiritual intermediary who communicates in a living body with the angelic and archangelic kingdoms, the world of the gods, the family of light, the galactics and the deceased ancestors. Since the priests choose to serve humanity through the reception and transmission of messages, they should constantly maintain clarity of consciousness, master astrology, and feel even the slightest changes in the biorhythm of life.
Priests and the undisclosed potential are quite easily recognized, easily trained and sociable since they have already gained experience in communicating and transmitting information with the greatest accuracy from higher forces. In the modern sense of the word, a priest is a channeler who has already contacted the higher powers. It is necessary to understand that if you have been trained for so long and conducted in different areas of work throughout your life, which often led you to despair, it is only so that you will gain the necessary skills for an extremely important mission of the soul. If we are talking about magicians, then of course every one of those who are currently them has already had experience of interacting with black magic. And in this incarnation, you need to meet with the guardians of the crystals and all the necessary meetings are already planned within this incarnation, but in the case of potential disclosure. Magicians often choose to embody a strong and stocky physical body, and in this they are very similar to shamans, who also have a strong structure to withstand physical overload when communicating with the other world or performing rituals for integration with natural processes and spirits.
You can recognize yourself as a magician by several characteristics: a craving for crystals and magical rituals, a desire to help people, and the ability to feel a close connection with Gaia and Earth processes, the world around you and nature.
And now it's time to talk about the guardians of the crystals, who often have developed clairvoyance, but, like all old souls, are forced to face internal fears and low self-esteem. After all, the more important the mission, the more the dark ones try to distort the human consciousness. Most crystal keepers will only begin their mission in the midst of a physical transition.
Since in order to perform their work, they will need a priest, as well as a group of guardians and also guides from the subtle plane, which will have to act as an essence that is located above the 5th, 7th dimensions. And when we talk about the guardians of the crystals, it is appropriate to note that first, the work with the crystals will be carried out from the subtle plane, and only then brought into the 5-dimensional space of Gaia. It is necessary to take into account several conditions and the factor of simultaneous events. Gaia, who already passes her physical body into the 5th dimension, a group of crystal guardians who translate Andara crystals into the 5-dimensional space that is being created, a guide who separates and translates them, an essence that has experience working with the substance prima matrix. A priest who conducts and transmits data and forms a single chain of events. In any of these examples, you can see how different the spiritual missions are. The more you unlock your own potential, the wider your range of abilities, endowments, and potentials. But it is worth noting that no matter what abilities you have, it is important for everyone to integrate with each other. That is why the guardian angels have brought you into various groups similar to the 5th dimension. After you have partially presented the ascension process, we can fully talk about the unfolding of abilities. Starting from the moment here and now, try to realize the current moment as the only true and existing one. Just imagine that everything you have is temporary, just like your stay on Earth. What if you were given just 10 minutes to say goodbye to everyone? What would have happened then? Do you feel it? Do you feel the value of what you have growing? It is important to reach this awareness before the difficult exams and lessons are sent to you, in order to increase the level of immersion in the present moment and develop gratitude in you. Awareness of the present moment will allow you to first feel the physical matter surrounding you, and you will want to know what laws this three-dimensional reality works by.
And then, when you study this layer in detail, you will go much further, going beyond science or even science fiction, into esotericism and even further into the religious, and then the subtle material world. In fact, to experience the subtle world, you only need to become a part of it. And you must understand that your frequency will determine which layer of the subtle world you will be able to feel. Lower, middle, or higher astral, or see the space of the fifth dimension with all the bright range of colors. As you increase your awareness, through living in the present moment, listening to the rhythms of life and the signs of fate, you will begin to notice more and more how restless you were before. You will begin to analyze topics and compare yourself with who you were before. This is the first sign that you are making progress and gaining objectivity.
Over time, you will be able to get rid of the rush, because if you fully and consciously live the moment here and now, then you do not make rash decisions.
When you make the right choice in the direction of the right decisions, then the doors to the best possible scenario will open in front of you. Even if the events of life develop extremely intensively, you do not rush anywhere and do not give in to astral pressure. You gain immunity in this awareness and stretch out a compressed period of time with your attention. In this way, you will flow into absolute time and try to reach the higher dimensions. Dear ones, nothing can escape you afterwards. You will become the inner child who carries through a huge amount of information. At this stage, you are already achieving significant success without setting any limits.
In your space, it is important not to be an enemy to yourself and to allow, at least in your thoughts, the reality where you have already made the transition to exist.
This way of thinking will allow you to accept high frequencies without sudden ignition or anxiety disorders. And a nice bonus will be the ability to live every moment in fullness and happiness from the implementation of your plans. The acceleration in the materialization of ideas with the transition to positive thinking will lead you to real excitement in a good sense of the word. And it will also allow you to dissolve the existing framework and become a manager, a creator of your own life. One day, you will wake up and realize that you can do anything. Start a business without investment from scratch, get your body in perfect shape, meet people you've only read about or watched from the screens. Visit the countries you would like to visit.
As soon as you reach the level of subtlety, you begin to feel events even before they happen, which means that you have a certain head start in order to, at least, prepare and understand what to do and how to respond to it.
In fact, the formula is simple. To feel the subtle world, you must first consciously feel the physical world. If you run endlessly, you forget about the fact that you are not this body and not even this mind. That all this is a matrix reality, and you are a player in it, that the soul flickers inside you, and all life's gains are only exams and lessons that prepare you for a better life, then it is too early to talk about subtle feelings. In the process of climbing, self-discipline, willpower, the ability to consciously live the moment, work on nutrition, and opening the heart, the ability to let go and follow constant prompts from above are important. And also constantly communicate with those who inspire you and help you along the way. It is advisable to meditate at least twice a day. Making a morning attunement meditation for the day and cleansing and loosening the body in the evening. The more often you come into contact with low vibration people, the more powerful the cleaning should be. If these are your close people or family members, then in these astral attacks, you will gain the ability to hold the blow, decompress them over time. Believe me, dear souls, all your efforts will not be in vain, and one day you will see the result of your work. What you purify will never return to earth. The heavy layer, along with all the entities, will be gone forever. However, the heaviest will be dropped by the earth itself. It is necessary to perform breathing practices until your body begins to light up. This is the first sign that the currents have begun to penetrate every cell and push out the inner darkness. If the heat becomes almost unbearable, then you should take alkaline water and eat fresh alkaline fruits. Breathing practices, such as square breathing, prana breathing, should be started with a delay of 3-5 seconds. But with each week to move further to 8-12 seconds. You need to understand that the main load is on the heart. Since it is the heart center that will have to balance the 3 lower and upper chakras. Therefore, you should not immediately start with 8-12, especially if you have never practiced it before. It is advisable not to conduct physical cardio training day after day with breathing practices, but to break it up on different days.
If we are talking about the disclosure of psychic abilities, every detail is important: body, mind, attitude, perception, interaction with the external environment, the ability to overcome yourself at every moment of time.
It is advisable to periodically clean the earth vessel from eating, spend days of dry fasting or on water. If you want to become a better person, you will literally, down to the cellular level, need to stop being who you are now.
You will need not only to look at the world from a different angle, but to view it from all the positions that exist in three-dimensional reality, and then, having passed the fourth dimension, look at everything with an expanded view.
After all, if you want to become a thinker, you must accept the fact that you will be able to see through the eyes of other people, to live their feelings. In this way, you will gain the total experience of other people, not living their lives, but feeling their emotions. Then you will no longer try to hide or run away from pain and heaviness, but will gain resistance and immunity, learn to hold the blow and not react too sharply to events. You will have some time until the majority reaches the consciousness of unity is in some kind of waiting. And if you want to know, where is the love in all this process? The answer is that it will only be able to penetrate when you are finally able to recognize and let go of the inner darkness. All the higher powers will help you in this. Be blessed, dear souls. Strive forward tirelessly. With great respect and gratitude. Gauhar, through my higher self. The Fifth Dimension Channel.